Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Hello and welcome back to the Racing Post Football Postcast. It's a real pleasure to be back in the hot seat. Bruce has taken a well-deserved break, maybe a winter break. Who knows what he's up to. Delighted to be able to welcome Mark Langdon and Dan Childs to the studio from the Racing Post Sport Desk, and Brian McDonald from our friends over at Paddy Power. Myself, Jack Reeve, will be taking you through all of the football we've got coming up. There is a winter break in the Premier League, but football does exist outside of the top flight, so we'll be looking at all of the outright markets from the leagues below as well, and also all of the boys' favourite. Hopefully get you an enhanced bet at the end of the show, as well as answering all of your questions that you kindly fired over us to on Twitter. Gents, how are we first of all?
In need of a winter break.
Yeah,
Bruce has got the right idea.
He has. You're being worked hard though. You're in here again.
Well, I think that this sort of mixture, I don't like it. I don't like this.
You don't like the break?
I don't like the break. I think if you're going to have it earlier on in sort of January time, and also I would just have a week off. I don't like this staggered one where we've got two half-hearted Premier League sort of coupons to get out. That's not for me.
Dan, where would you be off to in the world if you were given a winter break?
Somewhere, probably somewhere like Greece.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Brian, how are you, mate?
All good over here.
Good stuff. Right, we'll get into... let's talk about the transfer window, actually, gents. It was a fairly unremarkable transfer window, but there were a few nice transfers that went through. Mark, I want to get your thoughts on Erling Haaland, because he has hit the ground running at Borussia Dortmund, hasn't he?
Oh, he really has. Yeah, it's astonishing first 3 league matches.
8 goals, is that right?
Yeah, that's in with the cup as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's in 4. So they actually went out of the cup in midweek to Werder Bremen. So, but I think Haaland, what I've liked about him so far is the amount of different goals that he's scored. He's got some tap-ins, but he's also scored goals where he's sort of running on to the end of things. He scored a brilliant one, almost like how Salah got that one against Salzburg when he was on the byline and managed to curl it back in. Borussia Dortmund haven't played with a proper striker for some time, since really, I suppose, Lewandowski, and then Aubameyang left. Lucien Favre has tried to play Royce or Götze as a false 9. This gives them a whole new dynamic to their front line. He looks like he's going, right to the very top. People are already suggesting that Dortmund's just a stepping stone for him. He scored goals at Salzburg. He scored them in the Bundesliga. He scored goals in the Champions League as well. And Subotic, the former Borussia Dortmund defender, he played against him on Saturday for Union Berlin and said he's a cross between Aubameyang and Lewandowski.
That's not a bad cross.
I mean, that is, if you've got that sort of the pace, power, the technical ability and the predatory instincts as well. I mean, he's definitely going to be a big player on the European football scene.
And Dan, at the price of £18 million, that must make it one of the most remarkable transfers in recent times, mustn't it?
I think it's 2 million less than Jared Bowen went it to West Ham, and he only had 18 months left on his contract at Hull as well. But the value of it is incredible. I mean, there was a lot of speculation that Manchester United were interested, wasn't there? I don't know if it was them not following up on that, or whether he just wanted to go to Dortmund as the next step of his career. Who knows? But if United had a chance of signing him, I think they're going to regret it not doing it at that price.
I'm glad you've mentioned United there, because they did manage to get hold of Ighalo. What did you make of that? It seemed a funny transfer, but I remember Ighalo being a really top-class striker in the Premier League back in the day.
He was, but he had a good start at Watford, good first season. Him and Deeney playing together was the key, really, under Flores' the season when they established themselves in the Premier League. After that, his form actually tailed off. He had about 1 goal in 20-odd games the season after, and when he left, he was kind of in and out the side when he went off to China. Now, he has done very well in China. It's hard to judge, isn't it, whether that form's then going to translate back to the Premier League. But, if he makes the impact he made initially at Watford, could be a decent signing. But, I mean, he's not coming cheap. I mean, his wages, I think, were reportedly $330,000 a week in China. Man United, I think, are covering half of that as in terms of the loan fee. I think they're paying a $4 million loan fee for him. I mean, that's he's going to need to get some goals to repay that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what his fitness levels are like, having trained in China for a little while as well. Brian, let's stay on the January transfer window. What stood out for you?
It was probably a boring enough transfer window. Tottenham did very good business. Bergman scored a great goal against City on his debut. For me, as an Arsenal fan, I suppose any sort of defensive cover is good cover. If it was only 2 loan deals we got in, Suarez, who was injured coming in. It's the second time we've signed an injured player this season after Tierney as well. I'm not sure. It's cover at the back, I suppose. Arteta knows more than I do, so hopefully it turns into a good signing. But other than that, Igalo, I think the lads spoke about him there. His first 2 games, I think, are going to be very crucial. If he can score a goal, score 2 goals, he might be able to ride off the confidence of that for the rest of the season. But if he doesn't score in his first 2 games, it could be a disaster if he doesn't score for the rest of the season then.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how Igalo performs. Let us know what you think down in the comments section below. Let's move on to the PFA Player of the Year market. I know that Bruce and the panel touched on it in last week's postcast, but there's been a bit of movement in the market. You can also read Bruce's thoughts in his column on the Racing Post Sport website. Brian, we'll start with you. Let's have a quick read of the market and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, Jordan Henderson is our favourite. He's 11-8. Sadio Mane is 5-2. Then you've Kevin De Bruyne at 5-1, Virgil van Dijk at 7-1, and then Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah are both 16-1. Jordan Henderson is 11-8. He's very short for me. You could have got him at over 100-1 before Christmas.
Wow.
He's taken up too much of the market. I think there's this sort of all the media talk is about Henderson at the moment. He's probably been Liverpool's most consistent player maybe over the past couple of years. I know he's had the most appearances in the Premier League over the last decade, but it is the players that are voting in this, and I don't think he'll even win Liverpool's Player of the Season. Obviously, there are players with a lot more quality in that side. I don't think the value is with him. I think the value is probably with Kevin De Bruyne or Virgil van Dijk. De Bruyne, for me, he's the best player in the league this season. Some of his passes and assists and performances have just been unbelievable. But I'd be going with Virgil van Dijk at 7-1. I think he has been the catalyst for this sort of Liverpool surge that they've been on since he came into the club. I just think him at 7-1 is a lot better than Jordan Henderson. I'd actually be laying Jordan Henderson at 6-4, maybe on the exchange. He'll probably win the Writers' Player of the Year. I don't know if Mark and Dan vote in that one, but all the talk and the journalists and stuff seem to be on Jordan Henderson, but I don't think he'll win PFA Player of the Year.
Now, Mark, try and educate me around this. Jordan Henderson from 100-1 into 11-8. What's the logic behind this gamble?
Oh, well, I think there's been money. There has been some, money for Jordan Henderson. Just I suppose on the basis that everybody's been so good for Liverpool, and that Henderson as the figurehead of that, he's going to become the first, player in the Premier League era to lift the top flight trophy for Liverpool. There was sort of like that. Almost iconic moment, I suppose, with the Champions League. He got quite emotional when he lifted that. I mean, I'm so told as a Spurs fan, I tried not to watch much of that bit. But, he's also, I suppose, been always there. And maybe some of the forwards. Mane is just out at the moment, and we're just turning our attention really to Player of the Year. If you were doing it a month ago, probably Mane was in cracking form. Firmino had just scored important goals in the World Club Cup. There were maybe other contenders there. I'm always wary, I suppose, of when money comes in something like this, because maybe the players are already talking about who they're going to, and there's this sort of vibe going around that Henderson's just going to win it. I also think that players are quite lazy, and so if there's sort of you get the forms passed round, and then they just go, I'm voting for Henderson, I'm voting for Henderson. So it might be that. I mean, I do think it's more open. Just looking from the outside looking in, it feels more open. I think Mane is really unlucky to not have won one yet. Yeah. I mean, he's been so good
fantastic to watch,
for Liverpool. So I mean, I'd chuck him in there, and I thought Alexander-Arnold as well. I mean, maybe he'll just win the Young Player of the Year, but he's second in assists.
Yeah,
he's an astonishingly good footballer. I wondered whether he might play a part, but I think the fact that we're talking about so many different players suggests that Henderson hasn't got it wrapped up yet.
Dan, De Bruyne, surely he's in with a shout as well, isn't he?
Yeah, I think they've got, just quickly touching on why Henderson's so short. I wonder if it's more of a the kind of thing within the club of Liverpool that they want him to get it because he's the captain and he's been so consistent. But at the end of the day, this is voted for by the majority of players voting for this won't be Liverpool players, and they're going to look at the best players they're coming up against. And so I'm not so sure that he is a great price. I think. as you mentioned there, De Bruyne, of his type, he's the best player in the league by a mile. I mean, well clear on the assists table. And Van Dijk, for me, is the main reason why Liverpool are so far clear in the Premier League. If it was down to me, it would be a toss-up between Van Dijk and De Bruyne.
In 1999, when United won the treble, David Ginola won PFA Player of the Year. Okay. Tottenham finished 11th in the Premier League. I think he had a respectable amount of assists and they won the League Cup. But I suppose because you're not quite sure from, Man United was so good, obviously you don't know which player was the standout, and it ended up splitting the vote.
Timing as well. I mean, because I think he scored that goal at Barnsley shortly before when the voting happened. So
you said they were 11th year he won it. So Burnley are currently 11th. Maybe a Chris Wood. Right, let's get on to some of the outright markets in the Premier League. As we mentioned earlier on in the show, there is a winter break, which means the games are split into 2 weekends, allowing every team to have at least 1 weekend off. Right, gents, let's get on to the Premier League then. We'll start with who's going to go down. Brian, we'll start with you in terms of a show of the market. I think I know who are probably favourites to be going down, and I don't really want to hear it again, but you can say it anyway. What are the odds looking like?
I know, yeah. Norwich are 16s on, 1-16 to go down. Villa are 8-11. West Ham 13-10. Watford 7-5. Bournemouth 6-4. Brighton 7-2 and 15-2 were those.
So the current bottom three, Brian, are made up of Norwich City in 20th, Watford in 19th, and West Ham United in 18th. Can you see it staying like that, or do you think there's going to be a bit more movement?
I think there will be a bit more movement. Norwich are fairly doomed as it is, unfortunately. I think Villa will go down, but I think the value could be with Bournemouth to go down. I know they have had 2 decent wins in their last 2 outings against teams around them in the league, in Villa and Brighton. But I think their run-in looks especially tough. If you look at their last 6 games, they play Man United, Man City, Spurs, Leicester, Southampton and Everton. So even if they're 5 or 6 points clear of the bottom 3 going into those last 6 games, I still think they can be dragged into it. And they're the team I'd be backing at 6-4.
Dad, I think we can probably all agree that Norwich City are down. So there's 2 places left to fill. Who are you going for in terms of relegation?
I'm going to go the same for Bournemouth. They stand out to me at odds against. They have had a couple of home wins recently against teams around them, but they played other teams around them. I mean, the game against Watford, they lost 3-0, lost to Norwich, didn't they, in that game recently, and haven't had good results. And they needed, I think, to do even better in those games because they haven't got. They've no more fixtures now against any of the bottom 6 the rest of the season. They've got to play all of the top 9. You know, their running is horrendous, and they're only 2 points above the relegation zone, going into those last 13 games. Watford have had 2 shocking finishes to games at Villa recently, conceding the last minute, and then Everton at the same massive blows. But they are playing a lot better under Pearson. I think they'll still pick up enough wins to get out of it. Bournemouth for me is that they're the stick-out price.
Mark, in terms of a bit further up the table, we've got Crystal Palace, Southampton, Newcastle and Burnley. Can you see any of them 4 getting dragged into it?
The one I've got written down here is Crystal Palace. They've got Newcastle at home after the break, which I think is absolutely massive game for Crystal Palace because they're not playing well at the moment, not scoring goals. And they've got to play away to Brighton, Bournemouth and Villa, which... they are capable of winning those games, but they're gonna be underdogs for a lot of them. And even that Watford at home that they've got. I mean, I agree with Dan about. I think Pearson's got Watford going in the right direction. So I just thought that Crystal Palace, because the one thing maybe that Bournemouth have got is people that can score goals, and Callum Wilson can refind his form, and
they've got
Harry Wilson,
haven't they?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think they've got a lot of their defenders back as well. I mean, Ake makes a big difference to them at the back, and I think he settles the whole team. I looked at their team from the game that they won last week against Villa, and it looked much more like a normal kind of Bournemouth team, whereas they've had a lot of players missing for much of the season. But they have got goal scorers. I look at Crystal Palace, and like the amount of times they've just nicked results. And they might be able to do that for the rest of the season. But I'm always fearful of teams that don't offer a lot in the final third.
Great stuff, a bit of variety there. Let's have a quick skim through the top scorer market in the Premier League, Brian, if you don't mind running us through them.
Yes, Sergio Aguero is favoured. He's 6-4. Jamie Vardy, he leads at the moment, but he's 5-2 second favourite. Salah is 9-2. Aubameyang 10-1, Danny Ings 16-1, Mane and Sterling are 20-1, and it's 22-1 bar those.
And for you, does Aguero, the favourite, take the Golden Boot, Brian?
He does for me. He's just one goal behind Vardy at the moment, but Vardy, he's sort of cooled off the past couple of weeks. I think he's a player who really thrives off the good form that he's on. But he's gone a bit cold now, so I think Aguero, no matter how poorly or if he's not in a game, he's always good for a chance and good for a goal. So I think his consistency will get him across the line in the top goal scorer.
Great stuff. Dan, you in agreement?
No, I think a bit too short of the top two in the market. You got sort of Vardy sort of tailing off, isn't he? His goals have dried up really since sort of December, January. Aguero, two issues I would have. He does pick up injuries, and the other thing, maybe Man City are going to look at, maybe Guardiola's going to look at the Champions League and things like that, and occasionally rest him more for Premier League games. Maybe give Jesus a few matches. It's Man City are probably going to finish second in the league, not going to win the title. So do you need to keep flogging Aguero game after game in the league? So I would look at Aubameyang. He's only three goals off the top. I think he shared it, didn't he, last season? And with the way that Arsenal are improving, I think, at the style of play under Arteta, maybe he can kind of ride off the back of that and have a strong finish to the season and finish top.
Mark, what are we thinking?
I agree that I think that Aguero's a bit risky now at the price, just because if I was Pep Guardiola, I would be resting him either side of Champions League matches. Not so downbeat on Vardy. I think he's maybe just had a quiet spell and can come back again. But the one I was looking at was Danny Ings, who you have to manage his fitness quite carefully. But now Southampton are out of the FA Cup, so they've basically only got this Premier League to go. I think they're very much an improving team. We saw that on Wednesday night against Tottenham. They were unlucky. That 4-0 against Liverpool was really harsh on them, but particularly first half performance. They're relying very much on his goals.
Yeah.
They look like they're a team that's creating a lot more chances now than they were earlier on in the season. I mean, you're slightly concerned that maybe at some stage he just has to quieten down. But I'm looking at him. I think he's getting better, and I fully expect him to be in Gareth Southgate's next England squad. Hopefully the boost that can come from that. And maybe if Southampton have got nothing left to play for, teeing up Danny Ings to get in the Euro squad is something that, becomes, something for them to aim for as a collective team. And, he's a really well-liked guy. I thought he maybe could, because Arsenal are not creating a load of chances.
No.
I was looking at Aubameyang out first. Their shot stats are well down at the moment.
Danny Ings in with the shout. Great stuff. Let's get on to the Championship then. It's exciting as always. We've got West Brom at the top on 56 points. Leeds dropping down a bit into second on 55 points. We'll get through the other top six contenders in a moment. Brian, just give us a run through the odds on the Championship outright market.
Yeah, Leeds are odds on 8-11, West Brom 23-10, Brentford are 13-2, Fulham 12s, Nottingham Forest 25-1, and it is 150-1 bar those five. Dan,
it always seems like Leeds try their best to chuck away a really strong position, don't they?
I don't think it's all necessarily Bielsa's fault. I think the squad, he needs a bit more help. I mean, in the window, you've lost Nketiah. They brought Augustin in on loan from Leipzig, and Bielsa's saying he's not ready for our style of play now. Whose fault it is that he's been brought into the club. Maybe they have not done enough work.
I mean, surely they know that before they've signed him, though, don't they?
Exactly. And whenever they get 3 or 4 injuries or a few suspensions, you look at the bench. Same last season, and there's not the quality to come into the side. And I would start to worry a little bit for them now. They play at great intensity, but they don't take the chances often that they create, and they do give goals away. And I think Brentford are getting it right at the back, and they've still got that fantastic goal for it. Kept hold of their best attacking players, Benrahma and Mbeumo and Watkins in January. They're only 5 points behind Leeds, 6 points behind West Brom. Got to play both at Griffin Park as well, which is if they can win those games, they'll probably be. I'd argue certainly the West Brom game, they'll be favourites going into it. The Leeds game, maybe even they'd be narrow favourites to win that. So I think at 13-2, the way the league is at the moment, that's a decent price. I mean, just moving on to promotion as well, because you've got a fascinating race for the playoffs. I just thought that Bristol City, 14-1 to go up. They're in the playoff positions at the moment. They've got a 3-point gap to the teams outside, and they've added Naki Wells, and they've had issues scoring goals. So that may assist them. It just seems a big price to me, 14-1 to go up when you've got a good chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, Brian, I always love this time of the year in the Championship. It's all going on. We saw Norwich win the title last season, a bit of a late charge. Can we see any of the kind of following pack kind of breaking through and winning the title? I know that Dan just mentioned Brentford there. Can you see maybe Forest, a Fulham going on to win?
I can't know. I can see the winner coming from the top three, Leeds, West Brom or Brentford. It is very hard to call at the moment. Leeds, they've actually been very popular with punters in the last couple of weeks and just after Christmas in the not to be promoted market. So they haven't been, we saw it last season with their bottle job. They haven't been as, even though their performances have been fantastic this season, but their clinicality in front of goal hasn't been great. They actually play Forest and Brentford in their next two games, so that's going to be huge for them. So we'll have a much clearer picture, I think, this time next week on how strong Leeds will be for those automatic promotion spots. But I think in behind, I think there's a bit too much to do for Forest, Bristol, Fulham. I know Mitrovic is just back from injury there. I think he might have been rushed back, but I do think the winner will come from the top three, Leeds, West Brom or Brentford.
Yeah, Mark, it's still a really tough market to kind of get your head around. Where would your money be here?
I believe it. I was just speaking to a Leeds fan actually before I came in. Just saying, believe it, believe in the process. You're the best team on all the stats. Like, just keep believing that if you do the right things every week, you'll eventually pick up enough points to at least go up. I mean, you never really get much value in Leeds because they are so well liked by the market. I was looking at the promotion angle, a bit like what Dan was saying, but I thought the Nottingham Forest at 6-1 for promotion just feels. I mean, I don't necessarily think they'll go in the top two, but they look bankers at the moment for the playoffs, and
a bit more support with Grabban as well.
Yeah, and they are. They're not a flashy team. They don't play football like Leeds do, but they just sort of really difficult to beat. And if it comes into the playoffs, they're the sort of team I think I'd want to be with. They've beaten Brentford home and away. They've drawn with Leeds. They've won at Fulham. They are a team that is probably well suited to playing sort of knockout football. Don't give much away, relying on Grabban, for your goals. But they've got quality elsewhere in the side as well. They've spent a lot of money. It's not like they're sort of paupers in the division. I thought 6-1 for promotion was a little bit harsh on them.
Yeah, some great insight there from.
When you talk about play, it's not completely inconceivable. They could actually finish in the top two.
I mean,
You've got that
running for you as well. Yeah, they're about 6-1 for promotion. They were the ones for me.
Yeah, 4 points between Forest and the top two, so definitely a chance. Great insight, lads. Let's get on to League One, another really exciting time in that division. Brian, what are our odds looking like for this?
League One. Rotherham are 17-10, Portsmouth 4-1, Coventry 4-1. Ipswich 10s, Oxford United 11s, Sunderland 12s, Peterborough 14s and 22s, Bardos.
Dan, it's certainly Portsmouth making a run here, aren't they? And Ipswich, who have been in the top two for the majority of the season, starting to fall away. Yeah,
no, I mean, Ipswich have had a poor run recently. They look like they were turning it around for a period. He switched to a back three, Paul Lambert, and then performances improved, but they've been picking a few injuries up recently, and that 4-1 defeat at home to Peterborough was a shocking result. I mean, Rotherham are going really strong. They probably deserve to be favourites, on a great run at the moment. Very powerful side, score a lot of goals. But I think Portsmouth have been on such a good run for a long time now. Had a terrible start of the season, but they've been getting better and better. I think they've won eight in a row in all competitions, 4 in a row in the league. Still unbeaten at home, so Fratton Park is a fortress. Away forms, they've sorted out. So 4-1. They're only 6 points off of Rotherham, and they've got 2 games in hand. The way they're playing, they'll probably win those anyway. So you're looking at them joining Rotherham at the top of the table. I think another one at a big price. They have played one more game than most, and 2 more than some teams, Peterborough. But 14-1, they're only 4 points off the top of the table, and they're beating the teams around them. Beat Wickham recently 4-0, Rotherham 2-1, Ipswich 4-1. I mentioned. And the crucial thing, a bit like with Brentford with them in the transfer window, there bound to have been some interest in Ivan Toney.
Yeah.
They kept him. Maddison went, but they replaced him really well. Got Sammy Smodics on loan from Bristol City, and he's been scoring goals, almost immediately since he's gone there. So they look a little bit overpriced as well for me.
Yeah, Brian, Peterborough certainly going well. There's goals in that team, isn't there?
There is, yeah. They had a dreadful run of form there after Christmas and into the end of January, but they are back with 4 wins on the spin. As Dan said, they were against the teams around them in the table as well, Rotherham, Wickham and Ipswich. So they have played a couple of games more. They are 14-1 though. I think I'd rather the points on the board than the games in hand in this league as well. Another team similar to Portsmouth, they played a couple of games less, but they're still there, is Coventry. They've only lost 3 games all season, and they have drawn 12, but they've been the most sort of consistent team, I think, at 4-1 as well. I think they could, like Portsmouth as well, win a couple of games in hand and go right back up towards the top of the table.
Mark, I see we haven't mentioned so far is Sunderland. Now, it seems like they're starting to turn them draws that they were having so many of at the start of the season into wins. They're 2 points off the top 6. Can you see them sneaking into the top 6?
I was at Fratton Park on Saturday for their game, 2-0 defeat against Portsmouth, and they were the better team until the goal. And they do look like they're heading, I think, in the right direction. I think they'll probably get into the playoffs. I'm not sure about them just in terms of finishing in the top 2. I think it's not so, they've got a bit of work to do, and if they were maybe sort of chasing down 1 or 2, you'd maybe give them a chance. But I think we've already mentioned that Portsmouth are playing really well. Coventry, the goal they scored against Bristol Rovers last week was fantastic. They're really good football. Rotherham, very solid team. I think they've conceded the fewest shots in the division. So I think that's probably Sunderland's biggest problem, is that Parkinson's just taking it. It took him a little bit too long, I think, to get going. But they are in a much better place now than what they were, when he first went in there, and it looked like absolute sort of, crisis time. We're going out of competition, sliding down the league. I think it's, maybe the playoffs for them, but I think Portsmouth, by the end of that game against Sunderland, they were all over them. Curtis and Seddon down the left-hand side were causing mayhem. Very solid at the back. Good in midfield. I think McGeehan's a really good player at that level. Marquis didn't do very well up front. He got taken off at half time. They looked much better when Harrison came on, sort of got about the pitch a bit quicker. I'm not sure that Marquis wants big, massive, they're quite a direct team, and it seemed to suit Harrison, whereas I think Marquis scored a lot of goals playing for Donny last year. Although he's quite a target man forward, I think he actually wants to play football, and it was
drops into a 10.
Yeah, so I just think that Portsmouth, even when they weren't doing well earlier on in the season, they were actually dominating a lot of games, and they've got going now. I'd be surprised if they didn't finish in the top 2.
Great stuff. Wickham also probably worth a mention. They've been up there all season long. All right, let's quickly run through League 2 then. I want to start here with you, Mark, actually. We're all quite fanciful of Mansfield at the start of the season. They're currently 21st in the table, 28 points.
Money back if they're relegated with Paddy.
I mean, what's happened with them?
They appointed. The risk was always in the manager. They appointed a manager that never managed before.
Obviously,
and and that was always, there was a question mark there. But I felt like that was sort of factored into the price, really, because this was a team that should have gone up last year and invested again. They'd gone for it again. Nicky Maynard coming in, scored a lot of goals last season. I don't think the manager was up to the task, and now they're just treading water. It's been a terrible season for them. I've got bets with Leeds, Portsmouth, and Mansfield in, but that are just been absolutely ruined by Mansfield. I think probably now I'm going to have a couple of darts at really big prices in the promotion market. One is Bradford, who have been. They were going terrible as well under Gary Bowyer. Stuart McCall coming in could just be the lift, because the fans absolutely love Stuart McCall. If he gets that sort of Valley Parade going again, they become a massive threat in League 2, and I think that they're a team that can get in the playoffs, and they're 35-1, I think, for promotion. They've got a lot to do, but it's Salford. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why Salford didn't spend the money in the summer when they were among the favourites for the division. But you look at the players they've brought in January. Tom Elliott from Millwall, Ashley Hunter from Fleetwood, Bruno Andrade from Lincoln, Wilson from Aberdeen, O'Connor from Lincoln, Easton from Fleetwood. They're shopping at a much higher level. I don't know if there was FFP reasons behind why they weren't doing it, or whether they thought they were good enough and then they realised pretty quickly that they weren't good enough.
It's a lot of change to be going on midway through the season, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it's good change. You're bringing in, sort of 6 players from a higher league. They've got a bit to do, but you have a look at their performances. They're definitely improving, and they're 4 to 6 for a top half finish, which I thought was too big as well.
Brian, I hadn't even thought of Salford in my thinking. Have you seen any interest from the Paddy Power punters in them?
They have, yeah. They have had interest. Yeah, I have them written down here as well, even for a top 7 finish, so they wouldn't even have to go the whole way and go up. But a top 7 finish is 11-1, with the signings Mark mentioned as well, and the form they sort of hit recently. Their away form has been fantastic as well, so I can definitely see them securing a top 7 spot.
And who's your real fancy for at the moment?
Well, my pre-season fancy is going well. I don't know if the lads remember. I tried to convince them to go for the Cobblers to get promoted Northampton instead of Mansfield back then. They're still going well, so I'll stick with them. But
Good
Swindon
stuff.
for me, they've got Owen Doyle back. They lost him for a couple of weeks, but I think, especially with their win there over Exeter at the weekend, I think they will have too much. I think they'll go on and win the title.
Yeah, Dan, I'm always looking at Swindon because you seem so keen on them, don't you?
Yeah, and I actually think if you're looking for to back the winner at the moment at 7 to 5, I think that's not a bad bet really. There's 3 or 4 teams probably in the hunt for that title, but Plymouth, I've had a decent run, picking up some results. I'm still also picking up a few injuries recently as well, which are not going to help their cause. Crew have been a little bit up and down recently. Had some injuries in defence.
Away from home as well.
Away from home, away form's a concern with him. Swindon, for me, they're stronger now, their squad. I mean, everyone talks about Doyle and Yates, but they got Hallam Hoping, who didn't have a great scoring record at Carlisle, but he's actually settled in really well at Swindon since he's gone in there. So they've got extra options now, up front, and the squad is stronger now, I think, than it was at the first half of the season. So they look a good bet. I would say Cheltenham, for promotion, look at a reasonable bet. I know I would expect them to be a slight chance of top 3 and search for the playoffs. Since Alfie May's come in, they've lacked a goal scorer all season. Brought him in, I think it was from Doncaster, and he's given them that cutting edge up front and made a big difference for him. So Cheltenham for promotion as well.
Yeah, exciting finishes expected throughout all of the top flight leagues in England. Great stuff then. Let's get on to the FA Cup really quickly. Mark, you've got a decent track record in this over previous years. Who is your early fancy in this tournament?
It was, Southampton. I'm not gutted because I support Spurs, but just from a financial point of view, Norwich at home in the last 16, it would have been going well. I think it's a really difficult competition because I'm not sure what Liverpool are going to do. I think until you know what Liverpool are going to do, it's difficult. I'm sort of edged to it. Man City, I've got Sheffield Wednesday. I think they're they're going to take it seriously. I understand why they're so short, but it's a really difficult market because Liverpool confuse it. If Liverpool take it seriously, then I think they're the bet. But you don't want to back them, and then all of a sudden, it's half a team that you've never heard of taking it at Chelsea. So no bet for me.
Brian, are you betting in this market or not?
Yeah, it's exactly what Mark says. It's a tough one to gauge with Liverpool, especially. Like Chelsea are twice the price of Liverpool, greater than twice the price. Chelsea are 9-1, Liverpool are 4-1. And if Liverpool, I don't think they're going to put out the same team that bet Shrewsbury in the replay, but it could be a similar team that bet Everton in the previous round. So a sort of mix of sort of fringe players and younger players. We don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, it's tough to really nail your colours to any sort of team at the moment.
Dan, I keep seeing this nonsense about Liverpool kind of disrespecting the tournament, but they're winning games, and that's all they need to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a third string though, wasn't it? Really, they put out. I mean, I know they've gone through, but we could have a whole week probably debating that. But I wouldn't want to be on them because they don't seem to be that interested. It's not just this year. I'm not sure Klopp is that bothered about the domestic cups. He's shown that really, his selections that since he's been in charge really. So. I wouldn't be touching them at that price. I would try and look for a bit of value and find a couple of teams that maybe if City do come a cropper, could give you a run. I mean, Leicester 15-2. I mean, they got a nice draw, haven't they? Got Birmingham at home in the next round. They are the third best team in the Premier League. So that looks a bit big to me. And back onto Arsenal, I do think they are improving under Arteta. 12-1. They've been drawn against Portsmouth, League One side, to get into the the quarterfinals. So maybe 12 to 1's a bit big for them.
Brilliant. A really comprehensive look at all of the outright markets so far then. We've got 4 games to look at in the Premier League, and we'll get right to that after this break.
I'm Jose Mourinho. I know a thing or two about being special. English Manager of the Year 3 times, special. Winning the daily jackpot on Paddy Power games, not special.
Understood, Jose. Yes, someone wins an average £40,000 jackpot every single day. So if you win, don't think you're special. Daily Jackpots by Paddy Power Games. Jackpots must be awarded by 11 p.m. and vary from day to day. Jackpot is shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to the Football Postcast here on the Racing Post. Thanks for sticking with us. We've got some really exciting games to look through now. We'll quickly spin through them. The Saturday midday fixture on BT Sport at 12:30 is Everton against Crystal Palace. Brian, a show of the odds here, please, mate.
Everton are 4-7. The draw 11-4. Crystal Palace are 9-2.
And who are you going to be putting your money on here?
I'll go with Everton to win in a sort of low-scoring affair, 1 or 2-0. So Everton win in under 2.5 goals for me. Palace's games are generally tight. They've drawn 4 of the last 5 away games and lost 1-0 to Newcastle in the other one. I think Mark touched upon their sort of lack of goal-scoring form at the moment. I think Tosun is out injured as well, so he can't play against his parent club. 7 of their 12 away games this season, they haven't conceded in the first half. So, yeah, I'm expecting this to be tight. Everton, they had a great comeback win over Watford last week. The spirit and the quality of performances has definitely improved under Ancelotti. So I'll go with them to win, low-scoring game.
Mark, are we being a bit harsh on Palace here? I think they've looked fairly shrewd at times this season.
Well, they've only won 1 in the last 10. And it's just the goals. I mean, I think Hodgson sets them up. He sets them up well in terms of, I mean, I know some of their fans are getting quite agitated now with sort of the dourness maybe of the football, because there's not much creativity coming through the midfield. It's basically give it to Zaha, hope he does something. Ayew as well, can come up with, he has done in the past, but it's pretty attritional stuff really. And I'm going to go for Everton. So I was going to go Everton under 3.5 goals just to give you that little bit of extra insurance. But you have a look at Everton's form since Silva left. They've only lost 1 of those matches. It was 2-1 at City. And I looked at their bench for the game against Watford last week. Moise Keane, Seamus Coleman, Bernard, Michael Keane. It's a decent squad there, really, that was just massively underperforming under Silva. They're not perfect. I don't think you can get that when you change your manager in the middle of the season. I'm interested to see what they do next year, but I think they're Ancelotti's trying to build the foundations for a good start next season, and that they should be able to get another 3 points.
Dan, is it a clean sweep on Everton?
Yeah, same bet as well. Everton and under 3.5 goals, I think looks a really good bet here. As Mark mentioned, I mean, the only defeat against Man City was under Carlo Ancelotti. The game at Watford, they weren't great, but they certainly did well when they went down to 10 men. Showed a good reaction to that, and always looked dangerous on the counter attack. I think they'll win the game. I think I'll give you another reason why I'll go under 3.5 goals. Is that Crystal Palace, they just don't concede many goals. I mean, they've only conceded, still the stat, they've only conceded more than 2 goals once this season. That was when they lost 4-0 at Tottenham. So he doesn't really chase games, Hodgson. They even when they go 1-0 down, they try and keep things tight and then nick something maybe from a break or a set piece. So I don't think it's going to work from here. I think Everton will win a low-scoring game.
And that Spurs game, Spurs scored with all 4 of their shots on target. So It wasn't like a 4-0 pummeling.
Brilliant. The next game then is the Saturday evening fixture, also on BT Sport. It's Brighton against Watford. Now, this has potential to be a good game, this, Brian, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Brighton are 11-10. The draw is 12-5, and Watford are 5-2. It's a tough one to call. The new manager bounce under Pearson, that seems to have come and gone for Watford, especially after losing their last 2 games, especially in the fashion they lost to Everton. The week before, they were unlucky to lose to Villa, I think. They created more chances. Should have got something from that game. Brighton managed to salvage a point last week in a 3-3 draw against Everton, but they West Ham, but they look very vulnerable down near the bottom. I think Watford, they're just playing with a bit more urgency under Pearson, even though they have lost their last 2 games. They do have that bit of quality with Delafeu, Pereira, Deeney, Decore. They're all capable of producing sort of match-winning moments. I think there's value in Decore anytime betting 5-1. He's still playing in that more advanced role under Pearson, just in behind Deeney there. So I'll go. It's a tough game to call a winner, but I'll go with Watford at 5-2, and then I'll have a stab at Decore anytime at 5-1.
Great stuff, Brian. Dan, what are your thoughts here?
I'll go with both teams to score, a shade of odds on. The reasons for that, I don't think either team are great defensively. Brighton have not looked as good defensively I've noticed since Dan Burn picked up an injury. He's been playing a left back, he's a centre back really, but since he's been out the side, they do look a lot more vulnerable. They've played well in the game at Bournemouth, but still lost 3-1 due to their defensive vulnerabilities. Conceded another 3 goals against West Ham, who haven't been playing that great. That would be a concern for me. Watford as well, they're not defending very well at the moment. I mean, the goals are conceded against Everton. The 2 from the set pieces in the first half injury time were really poor. So was the counter-attack goal they conceded. They should have probably signed a centre-back in January. It's been a weakness all season. Do look good going forward, though. Scored 14 goals in the last 8 games. First 17 games of the season, they scored 9. So there's been a big improvement in them going forward. Both teams to score for me.
Mark?
I'm going to go for Watford or draw, double chance here. Brighton are really well liked by the markets, and I like them as well, and they come out quite well on sort of a lot of the metrics that people use. But they've only won 2 of their last 14 matches in the Premier League, and they've only kept 1 clean sheet in that time. So, yes, they're good at certain aspects, but I find it very difficult to back them because they just don't win very many matches, and that always makes me nervous. I think they're sort of thing where actually when they're playing against a bigger team, you might sort of be more inclined to back them because you're getting a much better price about them winning. I can't back a team at 11-10 that's won 2 of their last 40 matches. It just makes me too nervous.
As we mentioned earlier, just the 2 games on Saturday, which leaves 2 on Sunday, starting with Sheffield United versus Bournemouth. That's a 2:30 kickoff. Brian, how are we looking for this one?
Sheffield United are 4-6 to win, the draw 5-2, and Bournemouth are 9-2.
And I assume, you shouldn't assume, but I assume you're fancying Sheffield United here?
Well, yeah, but Bournemouth are in big trouble to go down, as we said earlier on. But I think Sheffield United are even just a bit too short at 4-6 as well. So I'll sit on the fence and go with the draw at 5-2. Bournemouth, as we said earlier, they have their 2 home wins on the bounce, but severely lacking going forward this season. They've had lots of problems with injuries. I think they'll struggle to break down the Sheffield United defence. Sheffield United have, obviously high flying. If they're having a cracking season back in the Premier League. A win here would take them to within 2 points of Chelsea and the top 4 after 25 games. So that'd be an incredible story for Sheffield United. Too short at 4-6 though. 20 of Sheffield United's 25 league games have reduced under 2.5 goals. So don't expect a cracker here. Maybe throw under 2.5 goals into your goal line, Akers.
Great stuff. We're going to be getting onto Twitter questions in a bit, but I thought I'd bring one up here because it does relate to this game. Dan Clarkey asks on Twitter, is Dan Charles going to continue tipping against Sheffield United every week? What are your thoughts here?
I'm not going to quite tip against them, but I'm not going to tip for them either.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a draw in this one. The reason I'll give for this game and my general reason...
He's got a Sheffield Wednesday.
Sheffield Wednesday, yeah. No. My general reason is that I just don't think... I'm not so keen on teams that don't score a lot of goals, and they don't score... They've scored, I think, 26 in 25 games, and more recently, they've not scored more than 1 goal in any of their last 8 league games. Now, that when you're back... And they're going off quite short in a lot of games. Yeah. So, you're going off at sort of 4-6... home to a team, as Mark's mentioned, they have improved, got a few key players back recently. Wilson getting fit, Aki back, who's a big plus for Bournemouth. And Bournemouth, they had a bit of a lucky win against Brighton, the 3-1, but then the win against Villa, the 2-1, they played a lot better actually in that game. The performance, came with the result as well. So I just think they're a little bit more of a dangerous team than the markets in this case suggest. So I respect Sheffield United. I think they've had a fantastic season, but the markets respect them a lot as well. So that's a little reason why I'm maybe not going for them a lot this season.
No, fair enough. Mark, what about you?
I'm going for a draw as well, so it could be a clean sweep.
Wow.
You don't often get that. I think it's fair to say, but I think the problem with backing Sheffield United at 4-6, as Dan mentioned, is just the fact that they haven't scored more than 1 goal in any of their last 8 matches. Now, 1 goal so often is good enough for them because they've got brilliant clean sheet record, but a bit like Brighton, who are not keeping clean sheets, it makes you nervous if you're going off short prices and you've got to score 2 goals to win a game, or in this case, you've got to keep a clean sheet. Otherwise, if Bournemouth score, it becomes a really difficult job for Sheffield United to win the game based on sort of what we've seen from them this season. And even when that West Ham game, who arrived pretty similar to what Bournemouth are in terms of league position. It was a grind for them, and they eventually got it done. But there was that big VAR moment in injury time. It just feels like there are easier ways to get 4 to 6 winners, really, in my opinion. So I like the draw. I think the fact that Bournemouth are getting players back is a big boost for them. Sheffield United, though, 5 of their 7 defeats have been to the top 3. So I don't want to necessarily go out of my way to start laying them or backing Bournemouth, which I think brings the draw into play.
Brilliant stuff. Now, I know my opinion doesn't hold too much weight here. Definitely listen to the experts which are on the show, but I just can't see past Sheffield United here. They look so good this season, and Chris Wilder is just so likeable, isn't he? The final game of the weekend is Manchester City against West Ham. Brian, a quick show of the odds in your fancy here, mate.
Yeah, City 1-12, the draw 10s, and West Ham 20-1 to win. Look, I can't look past Man City, even though they've been quite inconsistent this season compared to last season. Their performances have still been, they dominate every game. They're just not so clinical at times this season. I think the first 20 minutes in this game will be crucial. If City score early, it could get ugly for West Ham. It could be a repeat of the opening day season. City won 5-0 at the London Stadium. West Ham don't seem to have the mentality at the moment to stay in a game if they concede earlier. We saw last week they surrendered a 2-goal lead over Brighton at home. Only once this season have West Ham at a higher XG than their hosts when playing away from home. A great signing, obviously, in Jared Bowen. He's well thought of, but he'll be doing well to have an impact on this game. So I expect a dominant City performance. You could look at the handicaps, but I think to win to 0 is even money. So that's just better than the -2 handicap, which is odds on. So I'll go with City to win to 0 at even money.
Brilliant. Dan, West Ham 20-1. That's surely worth a quid, isn't it?
No. No, I'm going to go with just West Ham to just about keep it, respectable. Man City and under 4.5 goals is you can get on at 8 to 11. So I don't think that's a bad bet. I'm looking at everyone remembers Man City's big wins. I mean, they had the 6-1 at Aston Villa not too long ago. Actually, at home, 11 of their last 12 home games have featured less than 5 goals, bringing that bet into play. The exception was 4-1 against League 2 Port Vale. So there's a statistical argument there. I think West Ham under Moyes, it will be damage limitation, players behind the ball, trying to keep the score down. Just one mention, I think about a month after Moyes came in the first spell at West Ham, they played at Man City away in December 2017. And I remember having a big bet on City on the handicap to win by a few goals. And West Ham actually played really, really well, took the lead, and Man City eventually got the job done 2-1. But it was a real grind for them. I think this will be a bit more comfortable, but no, I don't think it will be a massacre, put it that way.
It was a defender, wasn't it? It was Winston Reeve scored.
Reeve.
It was 100, whoever the defender was, it was 120, it may have been Ogbonna, maybe about, it was 125 to 1 to score first.
That's fantastic.
I remember, memory. I don't know why I can remember that, but I do. And I'm going to go for West Ham to score again. Now, the last 8 games between City and West Ham, it's 28-3 in favour of City. So they're probably going to hammer them. But Antonio to score just looked a little bit big to me because I wondered whether he might stick him up front. This might not be the game where Haller is needed really for the aerial route. They might look to play somebody quick up front and just boot the ball over the top. He had 6 shots against Brighton. Even if he comes off the right wing, he's good in the air. And maybe there's just an opportunity for West Ham to score because City have been a little bit dozy at the back at times this season. But I mean, when there's a team that's 1-12, finding betting value anywhere is very difficult.
Yeah, definitely tricky indeed. Right, that's the weekend's games in the Premier League rounded up. We've got a fantastic array of questions to get through from all of our kind viewers on Twitter. We'll do that right after this break.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to the Racing Post Football Postcast. Thanks to everyone who got in touch on Twitter to ask some questions for our panel. We'll be doing one question per person and we'll be starting with James Layfield. Mark, I'll let you answer this question. Who do you fancy for the Europa League?
Well, it's a really interesting market because it's 7-1 the field. I mean, I think of those that are 7-1, I think Inter, the fact that they've got Ludogorets in the first knockout round, they are in a couple of competitions that they're going for, Italian Cup and also the title, but he's added big depth to the squad with Ericsson, Victor Moses, Ashley Young, etc. So those are the front end of the market. But I thought Roma at 20-1, they've got Ghent in the last 32. It's a game I'd expect them to win. They've played well in a lot of matches this season. I've watched them against Juventus when they were really unlucky. Cengiz Under, Cliver, Dzeko up front. Chris Smalling's doing very well for them at the back, and they haven't really got that much else to play for. So I thought that a bit of 20s about Roma might give you a run. So yeah, I'm all over the Italians.
Brilliant. Well, there you go, James. That's your question answered. Dan, your question is from Otters on Twitter. He asks, out of all of the 4 divisions in England, which team is the best value bet to be relegated?
I think Charlton to be relegated from the Championship, 15-8. I'm looking at towards the bottom of the table there. I mean, it's looking bleak for Luton and Barnsley, but Wigan have had a couple of really good wins. They beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-1, dominated that game, should have won by more apparently, and then had that great win at Leeds. I mean, it was a bit backs to the wall, to say the least, but still to get that win, that 1-0 win at Leeds, a huge boost. They are improving and it's going to drag another team in. I think that team could be Charlton, who are only 4 points off the relegation zone. They needed, I mean, you had the takeover, they really needed to strengthen in January. I think that he's been, Lee Bowyer there has been battling with a small squad on injuries all season. And they've brought in David Davis on loan from Birmingham, who's not been getting in the team for Birmingham, and Aidan McGeady, who has got ability from Sunderland, but really hasn't been playing at his best for quite a long time now. That's not enough for me. I think they could go down.
Yeah, great stuff from Dan. And Brian, your question comes in from Matthew Glazier on Twitter. He asks, the Champions League looms on the horizon once again. What is the outright value ahead of the last 16?
I am going to go with a big price at Dortmund at 55-1. They do have PSG in the round of 16, but I think we touched on them earlier at the start of the show, how Erling Haaland has come in and he stole the show. I don't think he's cup tied in this tournament. I think there's a new rule brought in that he's not cup tied. Correct me if I'm wrong, lads. But yeah, so if they, we know how vulnerable PSG have been in knockout Champions League over the last number of years, and if Dortmund do get past them, that price will absolutely tumble. It will be a quarter of the price, if not even shorter. City are favourites at 10-3. They have a tough draw against Real Madrid. Liverpool are, despite their good record in Europe under Klopp, 4-1 is just a bit short for me. So I'll go for Dortmund at 55-1 at the value.
Love that, a big price. And I've got a question for Mark. How on earth do you fit so much info on that note sheet? Just quickly hold it up to the camera, because you're constantly referring to it and your knowledge is exceptional. But that looks unreadable to me.
It's unreadable to me as well. It's just little pointers that I just, little triggers.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it probably, if I was to go to some media training, they wouldn't tell me to do it like that, would they?
Probably slightly more environmentally friendly than my reams of paper anyway. Let's get on to any other fancies throughout the divisions across Europe. Brian, we'll start with you, mate. Any fancies?
Yeah, I'll just follow up with Dortmund again. They've been talked about a lot on this show, but they're Leverkusen away from home. Leverkusen, they've only won 4 of their 10 home games this season. Dortmund, since their winter break, they've played 3 games in the league. They've scored 5 goals in each game, so they're on fire. I'm happy to take them odds against around 5-4 away to Leverkusen.
Good one. Dan, what about you?
I've got 2 in the lower leagues. Portsmouth, I think a real solid, good odds-on bet. I mean, we talked a lot about Portsmouth. Away to Tranmere, a third from bottom in a real relegation battle. Tranmere have been struggling recently. Lost the last 4 games in a row without scoring. This is their 6th game in 16 days. They had all them FA Cup games, didn't they? Played against Watford, went to extra time, then played against Man United a couple of days later. Just think they're on their last legs at the moment, Tranmere. Down into League 2. Grimsby, I think, a little bit overpriced at Bradford at 11-4. Now, I know Stuart McCall's gone in there and you could get a new manager bounce, but I just think it's built a bit too much into the price. They're on a terrible run, 7 games without a win. They've got issues up front with Doyle and James Vaughan going just before the transfer window closed. And Grimsby have picked up under Holloway 4 points from the last 2 games. They're doing a little bit better now, scoring some more goals. So Grimsby a little bit overpriced as well.
Brilliant. Mark?
In the Milan derby, I like Inter, around about even money. I know there's the derby factor to consider, but there's 19 points between them in the table into the other sort of derby this season. I was going to say the reverse fixture, but they're all at San Siro. So they won the first fixture between the two teams 2-0. I respect the fact that Milan are improving, but I'm not sure that the gulf is as narrow as what is suggested. Espanyol against Mallorca, it's a real bottom of the table clash, really. A massive 6-pointer. Espanyol spent a lot of money in January. They've got Chinese owners that don't want to be relegated, pumped a load of money in. They're playing a lot better now. Raul de Thomas has scored. He was the big sort of arrival. He scored in his last 4 matches. Mallorca, this is basically the team that they came up with from the 3rd tier up to the 2nd tier, up to the 1st tier. They're struggling. And then I'm just going to give a mention in League One. I think Sunderland odds against to beat Ipswich, who've got a very poor record against the best teams in the division. They were absolutely awful against Rotherham and Peterborough. And in that Peterborough game, you had Garbett get injured and Edwards picked up a yellow card that rules him out. So that's both the wing-backs missing.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Sunderland there. I really fancy them. Right, let's get on to the boys' naps.
This will not be beaten.
Okay, this is the strongest fancy from all of the panel. Brian, we'll start with you, mate.
I will pick Salford in League Two. They're playing Crawley at home. They're even money, so I like to get an odds against selection in to boost up the price. But Crawley only 1 win from their 15 away games this season. Salford, we spoke about them in depth earlier on in the show. A couple of great signings in January, and I think they can continue their good form.
Salford go in. Dan, what about you?
Lake Norrin in League Two at home to Macclesfield. Shade of odds on. Won 2 of the last 3. Got a striker, 19-year-old Cypriot striker, Raul Soteriou, who they brought back on loan from Dover. He's playing really well for him. Got 3 goals in his last 3 games. It looks decent player on the highlights. And against Macclesfield, who, with all their financial problems at the moment, not really done enough in the window. Had only 4 players of the allotted 7 on the bench for their 1-0 loss at home to Northampton last Saturday, which by all accounts should have been a heavier defeat. No away win in 9 games for Macclesfield as well.
Orient for Dan. Mark, what about you?
Playing it a little bit safer than Orient. Portsmouth to win away at Tranmere. They've won 8 in a row. Tranmere do look absolutely exhausted. That game against Doncaster, they lost 3-0 on Tuesday. It was 8-1 on shots on target. Doncaster had 7 big chances, 13 shots inside the box. It looked like an absolute battering. I'd normally be a little bit concerned about the pitch, but Portsmouth bang it forward anyway, so that's not really going to be a problem. So, yeah, Portsmouth.
Wonderful. So it's Salford, Orient and Portsmouth. Brian, will Paddy Power be enhancing this treble for our viewers?
We will, of course, yeah. It'll be enhanced. It'll be up on our football specials page later on today.
Wonderful stuff, and we'll link that in the description below as well. I've really enjoyed this show. I hope you have too. Thank you to Dan, thank you to Mark, and thank you to Brian from Paddy Power. The team will be back tomorrow for the Racing Postcast, another really exciting weekend's racing ahead of us. If you can, please do leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really does help us out. And also, if you want all of the latest news, then please do download the Racing Post app off Android and also off of Apple. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend's punting. Gamble responsibly, and we'll see you next week for another football postcast. Bye-bye.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log into your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.